the UFC, the UEFA Finals, the US Open Championship, the MLB All-Star Game, the NFL, Big Ten football, and the FIFA World Cup. The world's biggest events are on Fox Sports.
From Chesapeake, Virginia, WHKT presents Sports Scene. Sports Scene features local, regional, and nationally acclaimed guests and excellent interviews. Follow Sports Scene on Twitter at Greg Bick. Now here is Greg Bicouvaris.
All right, thank you very much, Joe Daniel. We are live as always on this December 6th, very overcast, cool day in Hampton Roads. Sports Scene is an interview show each Wednesday from 12 to 1. Also watch sports highlights on nnpstv.com. Tell your friends about gjbtv.com and click the YouTube link on the homepage for archived audio and video. Great score there by Joe Daniel. Twitter, @GregBick, and you can see the rest of my Twitter handles on gjbtv.com in the contact section. Thank you to our military guest lineup presented by Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville. We'll talk to Stan White. Sponsors on gjbtv.com, marketplace sponsors, and Hampton Roads, onlinemall.com. Phone line presented by Spaghetti Eddie's. Show presented by hrsmhof.com. Well, in the news right now, Gronk suspended for a hit during the Bills game. Horrible action with the Steelers and the Bengals on Monday night. Too many injuries there, too many unnecessary injuries. Who will be the new Giants head coach, and how many more games will the Redskins win this season? What's going on at Tennessee with the Volunteers coaching search is really awkward, to say the least. Sports Scene will continue as we continue more on this show with great interviews, business segments, highlights, commentary, what tees me off. Thank you for making the habit to listen to Sports Scene weekly, and we love our regulars and newcomers on 1650 AM, 92.5 FM, tunein.com, type in WHKT to listen on your phone or your computer, and subscribe on TuneIn. Stay tuned.
Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to gjbtv.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
All right, we're well into December, of course. Had a chance to go to the Ravens game this past weekend as the Lions took care of them. Of course, somebody that played for the Detroit Lions, Stan White, played for Ohio State, and, of course, the Baltimore Colts. Let's welcome the current Ravens rating analyst, Stan White. How are you, my friend?
All right, Greg, how you doing?
Very good. Let me ask you, first of all, how's the rotating analyst thing working out for you this year? Do you prefer two's company or three's a crowd? How's that working out for the most part?
It's worked out pretty good. But all the guys have been real good, and they've added a different, aspect of the game. So I think it's worked out well. Dennis Pitta, Todd Heap, Justin Forsett were all very informative, and then we got Jarrett Johnson coming up for the last four. So I think everybody sort of likes the format that we come up with this year.
Yep, Stan White used to work for Home Team Sports, of course, with the Ravens for pretty much for several decades now. Let's talk about the hottest teams in the AFC right now, Stan, are the Patriots, the Steelers, and the Ravens.
The Ravens have put themselves in that conversation, won 3 in a row, and the offense got going this week. The defense has been one of the top defenses in the league, especially as far as takeaways and pass defense are concerned. So, they put themselves up there.
Now you look at the schedule coming up. They take on the Steelers on the road. Never easy. I'm not a big fan of night games to begin with, but you saw what the Steelers and the Bengals did this past Monday night. Let's hope it's not as ugly as that.
Well, yeah. I mean, there were a couple things in there. It's going to be a physical game. We know that. The AFC North is physical. A couple of those were out of hand, and it's a shame that Ryan Shazier, who's an Ohio State boy that I followed for a long time, that he got hurt because he's been playing so well, and hopefully he'll be okay. But that was just. Those are freak things. You see some of the injuries you get. You look at the play and you don't you don't think, wow, how did that happen? And then other ones is great big collisions and nothing happens. So football is a tough game, that's for sure, a physical game.
Talking to Stan White, who's been on Sports Scene several times. Greg Bicouvaris, glad you're with us at 12:12. And you look at the schedule, like we said, the arch rival coming up this weekend on national TV. Then you take a desperate Browns team. Then you take on the Colts. It's always an emotional time when they come to town, especially coming up before Christmas. And then they take on the Bengals, who have been up and down. So all four of these games are winnable, but you can't take any for granted.
Well, no, and of course they're not going to be favored this week in Pittsburgh, but they've always played well in Pittsburgh. Even last year, it went down to Antonio Brown stretching his cross for a touchdown with a few seconds left in the game for Pittsburgh to beat the Ravens. The rest of those games, they will be favored in. They go on the road to the Browns, who are looking for a win. We know that, and they always play tough against the Ravens. But then the good thing is you have your last two games at home. And they haven't had that for quite a while. We usually end up in Cincinnati, but we're at home for the Colts in a Saturday night game, late afternoon game, and then we finish off the season with Cincinnati at home. And if the visiting team is out of it and doesn't have anything to play for, like the Ravens were when they went to Cincinnati last year, that's a big advantage for a home team that does have something to play for.
Right, because they'll have that advantage. And of course, they'd like to get some rest if they make the the postseason, which right now they're on track to. But of course, it's still early. The final 25% of the season. I kind of call this the Dr. Phil season now, because everybody's got issues. You look at the Ravens' upcoming opponents past the Steelers. The Browns have not won a game. The Colts really have not found themselves at all with the head coach. And of course, the quarterback has been out all year. And of course, the Bengals. I mean, they're always so up and down.
Well, and the Bengals coach, Marvin Lewis, might be his last game. So the way it looks, I've heard all year that Marvin intended on stepping down after this year. So I've heard that from a lot of different people. So they alluded to that on the game Monday night against the Steelers. So I would not be surprised if that might be his last game, too.
Yeah, he's one of the longest tenured coaches now in the NFL. I mean, he's right up there. You look at him, he's right.
Belichick, yeah.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a question. What is Billick doing now? He's not on the national stage. He doesn't work for Fox anymore for the last several years. I don't really see him on the NFL Network that much.
I think he does. I think he does things on the NFL Network pretty regularly. Mm-hmm. I have not seen him recently, but he did our preseason games. Preseason always something that all the teams experiment with. They had our radio. We simulcast them for 3 or 4 years, and then we had Gus Johnson and Brian Baldinger do them for a while. So there's always something different as new people come in and want to try different things. So Brian came in, did a good job this year, and I don't know where that's going to go, but he's lives down the Eastern Shore, so he's around here. But I think NFL Network is what he does most, and goes sees his kids and grandkids.
Talking to Stan White. Stan, what type of year has this been for the Ravens? A lot was put on the pressure for Harbaugh. Has not made the postseason the last several years. Will the team that showed up against the Bengals that beat them 20-0, or when they had a very impressive win against the Dolphins, winning 40-0, or the team that's been anemic scoring? Because it seems like lately they're picking it up a notch on offense and defense, and really everything came to fruition against the Lions.
Yeah, they're the only downside of the Lions game was Jimmy Smith getting hurt, because he always plays well against Antonio Brown, and we could use him against Antonio. We saw what happened last year without him. But they do have a lot better backups this year, a lot deeper at corner this year. Defense has been playing well. They maybe had one bad game. That was our London game. But other than that, they played pretty well all year. The offense, the line's just starting to come together where they got 2 or 3 games in a row with the same people in there, and that's helped. Plus, they got their receivers back, and they were missing. Mike Wallace missed some. Different receivers were missing games back to back to back. The tight ends got hurt, and so they're finally getting people together, and I think it's at least it's at right time.
We're talking to Stan White, former Ohio State great. The Ravens are 7-5 with 4 games left. Greg Bick on Twitter up until 1 o'clock. Stan will join us for the next up until about 12:30 or so. And you talk about the Ravens' history. This year has been, well, like we said, up and down. But the thing is, they're trending good right now. People have said the offense. I saw Flacco's arm look very good on Sunday against Detroit. Detroit's no slouch. Of course, they lost their quarterback in the game as well, but that still was a solid 4-quarter performance when the Lions had like several passes completed in a row. The defense didn't give up at all.
Yeah, 20 passes in a row Stafford completed, and then the 21st was picked off, and then he got hurt on that play. So Stafford's a good quarterback. That's why he's the highest paid player in the league. He's already thrown for over 3,000 yards. So to have that type of success against him, despite that little lull there where he had those 20 in a row, was pretty good by the Raven defense. And of course they got Big Ben this week, so it's back-to-back quarterbacks. They've been pretty fortunate this year. They've missed a lot of the starting quarterbacks and played backups in quite a number of games, but they're going to hit the starters here, I think, the rest of the way out.
Right, it's all about offense, defense, special teams. I tell you, I'm really impressed by Collins. I love his energy. I love his enthusiasm. He reminds me, of a shorter Jamal Lewis.
Well, yeah, he's got quickness and speed. Not that Jamal didn't. Jamal would run over people. Alex is going to elude people. He's got that ability, and he's decently strong too. He'll stick his nose in there on inside runs and carry the pile for 2 or 3 yards. He does that well too, but he's just he can make that big play. He can turn a 5-yard into a 40-yarder. And that's what this offense needed. He gave them a little spark when they were missing their receivers. He was the one guy that could do something as far as big plays are concerned on offense. So yeah, he's been a big find this year.
Stan, you're all over the NFL, home and away for the Ravens, of course. What has your take been in different NFL stadiums with all the national anthem controversy? Has it affected the attendance? Are you hearing a lot of boos? It seems like it's starting to calm down a little bit, but that was not a good sight, and as well as the TV ratings too.
Yeah, it has calmed down. It had calmed down before, and then President Trump made the comment and jacked it back up. And hopefully the league and the players have gotten together. The league's going to contribute some money to some causes, some social causes. So I think the players got to understand that they are hurting the game by doing that. And, the problem is players don't look at it. They say, I'm only going to be here 4, 5, 6 years anyhow, so... but all the other guys who have played the game over the years and the guys that are coming up, it hurts it for them because the TV ratings were back up pretty good this past week or two. So I think it's hopefully run its course, and hopefully some of the people who said they'll never go back to another game will reconsider and not cut off their nose to spite their face.
And here's what I always tell my friends and people that are not in the media, that you look at the ratings. The NBA, Major League Baseball, the NHL would die to have the TV ratings that Fox and CBS and ESPN have. The ratings are still very good compared to the other major sports.
Well, no, it's compared. They're not down nearly as much as television ratings in general are down.
Sure.
So they're down less than the overall television ratings because people are now streaming. They got smart TVs, they got computers, they got iPads, they got iPhones. They're watching on all these different devices that aren't measured. So their ratings are down, but the NFL's ratings are down quite a bit less than television in general. So I think you have to look at it that way too.
Is Harbaugh safe for 2018? It seems like he's gotten the winning track back on pace here, but it still seems like, regardless, it's going to be measured if you get back to the postseason, no matter what.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think your season is always measured on whether you get to the postseason or not, and you need the Ravens are in a position to make it to the offseason. I don't think John Harbaugh is in trouble. I thought maybe if they went 4-12, he might be, or 5-11, but they aren't going to do that. And they've overcome a lot of injuries, and their offensive line hasn't, as I said, until this past couple of weeks, has started a different group every week. So I think the owner understands football and how injuries impact things. And so I think the fact that they're 7, they're going to win 8, 9, 10 games. I think John John's in fine shape.
I totally agree. It's so hard to find quality head coaches. You talk about assistant coaches. Look at what happened with McAdoo. It's hard to replace a guy like Coughlin. Look at the Denver Broncos. They can't buy a win right now. Even the Chiefs are back to 500 with the Raiders and the Chargers. It's hard to find a quality head coach. I mean, it's a very difficult situation. The Browns, I mean, look at that. They've won one game the last 2 seasons. Who are you going to find better than Harbaugh? What to me is more surprising than anything this year, Stan, is the Titans and the Jaguars are 8-4.
Yeah, and the Rams, I mean, that's the most surprising team to me is the Rams coming on with Goff and everything they've done there. The Eagles with Wentz, so a good quarterback helps the coach look pretty good, whether it be Peterson in Philadelphia, or the Rams or whoever it might be. But, see, that's the problem. Being a great coordinator does not make you a great head coach. You don't have to. I mean, John Harbaugh wasn't looked at as the top coordinator in the league, but he's turned into a great head coach. Just look at his record with 3 AFC championship games. It's dealing with people, handling situations, getting the most out of your players, putting together a good staff. And a lot of times when you make your good offensive coordinator into your head coach, you end up losing your offensive coordinator and having a bad head coach at the same time. And it's sort of like a salesman, taking your best salesman and making him a sales manager. It doesn't always work out because you lose your best salesman and he's not a good sales manager. So it's the same thing in football, and that's why it is tough because you don't know until they get there whether they're going to be a good head coach or not.
You're exactly right. Look at a guy you took against, Arnsparger for the Dolphins. I mean, y'all played them all the time with the Colts. He became the head coach of the Giants. It didn't work out that well, even though he had a quarterback from my area, Norm Snead. You remember Norm Snead as well.
Oh yeah, the Eagles and so forth. You just never know who's going to be that good head coach. And just being a good coordinator is not the only thing on a job description for a head coach. It's handling people, handling the media. There's just so many different things you have to do and do it well to be a head coach.
And that's one thing Billick did. I mean, his offense struggled. He was an offensive guy with the Vikings, but he did win a Super Bowl. And he was a PR guy and a broadcaster, so he knew how to handle the media. This has baffled me this week that Herm Edwards, who played in the NFL, of course, has been removed from college football for almost 30 years, who's basically been sitting in a studio at ESPN the last several years, is now going to go on the recruiting trail at his age on the West Coast against, the teams of UCLA and USC and all the great Pac-12 teams. I don't see how that's a good fit. I know Herm knows football, but this is a young man's game now, and I'm not sure if he's got the desire to sustain. I don't see where he didn't know what the Arizona State's nickname was.
He's going to have to. It's a big gamble, I would say. He has to know. He has to. I mean, the whole thing is recruiting.
Yeah,
getting good players. I mean, I coach a high school team here that has a lot of Division I players on it, and we get our coaches in here every week. Urban Meyer, Nick Saban was here a couple days ago. We get these guys. They know. For them to win, they have to get good players and good assistant coaches. So that's up to Herm. He's got to put together a great staff, and he's got to get out on the road, and he's got to trek through, 2 months of straight, on the road, dawn till dusk. And you're right, at that age, sometimes the motivation isn't there. As it is with the young guys.
Because he's been in a studio in Connecticut just looking at monitors, and that's just a big lifestyle change. And plus he's not really going after new assistants because he said, I'll keep a lot of the same ones. I just don't think it's a good fit. I don't think he's going to do well. I know he's a great guy, great personality, great motivational speaker, but I don't think that's going to work long-term at all. Let me ask you real quick, Ohio State, they did not make it. Do they deserve to make it?
I thought they probably deserved to make it, but I could not argue because of the Iowa loss. How do you argue a 30-point loss to a team that's 7-5? And they had 2 losses. Alabama only had 1. There was arguments both ways. I mean, the committee at first said they were really going to honor conference championships. It seems like they didn't in the end because they thought Alabama was the better team. And in the end, you want the 4 best teams in there. And like I said, I thought Ohio State deserved to be in there, but I certainly can't argue too hard because of that Iowa loss. And they had a bad loss to Oklahoma at home at the Horseshoe. So those are two things that was going to be tough for them to overcome, and they just couldn't.
I think the thing that really hurt them against Iowa, they lost to them late in the season. If it was early in the season, they might have gotten away with it because it was like in September, but this was toward the end of the season. They didn't look well, and they had to play on the road, so they also measure how you do. I think what they looked at Alabama is it's a better eye candy test. They've had a better body of work as well.
Well, yeah, and they didn't play anybody the whole year, and they got beat by their rival, though, Auburn, in the last game of the season. And if Ohio State, the year before, they lost to Penn State on the road. Penn State was more like Iowa that year, last year, than they were what they were this year. But they only lost on a blocked field goal at the end, not by 30-some points. So I think that was the big difference. They got blown out on the road near the end of the year by a team barely over 500.
Right. So we'll see what the Ravens do, of course. A big game coming up, against the Steelers. And how about the Redskins, Stan? They're not too far away from the Ravens. I know they played the Ravens last year, but it seems like they're not going to make the postseason either. Yeah,
and I always root for the Redskins because Bruce Allen is a friend of mine. And when I finished my career in the USFL, I played for George Allen with the Chicago Blitz, and Bruce was the general manager, and he was like 23 years old and signed me from off the Detroit Lions roster. So I've always remained friends with him, and I'm rooting for him to do well. But they just can't keep it together there. They'll look really good for a streak, but then they'll have this streak of bad games too, and they can't overcome that.
Yeah, they're trying to tear down your old building, the Pontiac Silverdome.
Yeah, I was on the air with, you were there on Sunday with Jim Brandstetter, who's one of the announcers for both Michigan and in fact, he played at Michigan when I played at Ohio State, and for the Lions. And while I was doing the interview, he said he just got an update that they tried to implode the Silverdome where I played in 3 years I was in Detroit, and it wouldn't go down. So I guess it's a stubborn place up there. They're a good football town, and I enjoyed my 3 years up there, and the Silverdome was a good place to play.
Stan, all the best. Good luck against the Steelers on this coming up weekend as well.
Okay, all right, Greg.
Thank you. Stan White right there, former great Ohio State Buckeye, played for the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Colts, right here on Sports Scene, current Ravens radio analyst as well. I want to thank our good friends at Sakura Japanese Restaurant and Sushi Bar. Takeout and dine in. Go by and see Jasmine and the great staff. They orderup.com, Walmart Way Crossing in Chesapeake. Give them a call at 410-4577 for lunch or dinner. Sports Scene will continue after the news. We're live right now at 12:29.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter at Greg Bick. Email bicogb@hotmail.com. Now back to Greg Bicouvaris in the Hampton Roads OnlineMall.com studios. It's now time for Greg's Highlights, presented by Hampton Roads OnlineMall.com.
And our good friends at Panera, all items 100% clean. They deliver catering. Take advantage of the rapid pickup option. Soups, sandwiches, salads, bagels, bread. So yummy. Smoothies, breakfast sandwiches, cookies, desserts. Go by and see Brian and the great staff. PaneraBread.com. Food as it should be. Give them a call at 483-3670. Visit them at 6255 College Drive in Harborview. Excellent place for the holidays. Get some food to go. Excellent soup, too. Keep you warm. Food as it should be. Panera Bread in Harborview. All right, highlights. GJBTV.com. Bookmark it. Click the YouTube link for archive shows. Save the date. We'll be back next Wednesday for Sports Scene from 12 to 1 p.m. on Wednesday. You can see it in the TV radio log on Wednesdays, courtesy of the Daily Press as well. Hampton Roads Online Mall, folks. You got to remember this website for the holiday season. HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com. Browse, shop, visit. Great restaurants, services, marketplace, and retail. GJBTV.com as well as HRSMHOF.com. Other sports news, Georgia versus Oklahoma and Alabama versus Clemson in the Final Four for college football. Military Bowl, congratulations to UVA and Navy. George Welsh coached both those teams, as I mentioned on Twitter. And, of course, Virginia Tech and Oklahoma State in the Camping World Bowl. All right, let's get to our question presented by Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News to Joe Daniel, our producer. Joe Daniel, do you get an annual flu shot and why?
I do not get an annual flu shot. I probably should, but I haven't for years. I've never had the flu. I don't think I've ever had the flu ever since getting it. So I don't know. For me, it's not something. I used to be a really big, and the reason why is because I used to be a really big conspiracy theorist, and so I'm not as bad as I was, but some of that still lingers in my mind. But my kids absolutely do. My wife is a nurse in the Navy, and so she's all about vaccinations, and my kids get vaccinated, and so she's all for it. I personally just don't do it for myself. But I don't know. I mean, they're all over the CVS and the Rite Aids. Do you pop in there and do it yourself?
Nope, don't do it. I'm a firm believer in eating the right food, staying hydrated, washing your hands a lot, and just try to stay clean. Now, also, something that works for me, might not work for everybody else, is Mucinex. Mucinex really works well for me.
Yeah, and then vitamin C, all those
Yes.
emergencies or airborne or something like that, those help out a lot
Yeah,
as well.
more hot teas, the hot chocolates, stay hydrated. But if you eat fruits and vegetables and keep your hands clean, that is the key. Sure, you can catch a cold if you've got a weak immune system. We're not telling you what to do.
Yeah.
By no means. We're not your doctor or your Dr. Phil out there. But whatever works for you and me might not work for the next listener.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Learn your body, but like you said, you can't ever go wrong by eating well and staying clean.
Absolutely. Joe, Daniel, we think too much alike, my friend. All right, Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News, lunch, dinner, great appetizers like their mozzarella sticks, salads, boneless traditional wings, excellent burgers, wraps, tenders, macs, beverages, desserts, a kids menu, games on TV, wings, beer, sports. Go by and see the great staff over there at 12150 Jefferson Avenue, Newport News. Try some great flavors on your wings. Wall-to-wall sports on TV like the NFL, college football, the NBA, the NHL, all the bowls coming up, college basketball. A little too early for college basketball, but it's getting there as well. Right there at Buffalo Wild Wings in Newport News. Wings, beer, sports. All right, we'll take a short break. Come back after these messages.
You are listening to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Now, back to Greg.
All right, back live right here on Sports Scene every Wednesday from 12 to 1. CP Shuckers, locals tradition, Shore Drive, Pacific Avenue. People love their food, appetizers, steak bites, sandwiches, and burgers. All the games on TV. Go by and see Matt, Mark, Chef Leon. For more, go to cpshuckers.com. Great game last night with VCU in Texas. Smart comes back to Richmond and wins it at VCU. To talk more about it, Sonny Dearth from the Daily Press, regular on radio and TV for 29 years. How are you, my friend?
Excellent, Greg. Great to be here.
And I guess that would have been kind of awkward if Smart would have lost to his former team. It always is, but that's part of the deal. When you exit as a coach, you got to pay the visit back to the school.
Well, that was part of the VCU contract for a long time. I believe Norwood Teague, their former athletic director, made that part of it. And it was going to be an interesting game no matter what. And, you know, I couldn't be happier for both Shaka and Mike Rhodes. Those are two class guys. They're still really good friends, and they busted their butts to compete against each other for 2 hours, as did their players. And it was a good game. A little disappointing for VCU in the end, but still a great comeback. And I think both teams have grown from that.
How do you see the Richmond Old Dominion basketball game going?
I saw ODU's favored by about 11.5. The Spiders have only won one game. This is their worst start just by record since about 1972. Now, I still think they have a fair amount of talent. You know, they have two guys from the city of Richmond, and DeMonte Buckingham and Nick Sherrod, who are good players, and Grant Golden, who had a major health scare last year, has played well for them. But they still are struggling. And I'm curious to see how Old Dominion responds. Remember, they were at the Siegel Center playing VCU and leading by 11 points in the second half, and then VCU made a big comeback to beat them. So I'm curious to see how Jeff Jones' team can respond to that. They certainly have a lot of talent, too. You know, they're excellent defensively. The Stith brothers have been playing well, and you know, Porter down low has been tough.
Talking to Sonny Dearth from the Daily Press. For more, go to dailypress.com. And Sonny, exciting time in the state of Virginia. James Madison, your alma mater, doing well in football. Virginia gets back to a bowl game playing Navy. And, of course, Virginia Tech takes on Oklahoma State.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to all of that. Yeah, JMU will have the spotlight on Friday night at 7:00 on ESPN2, playing Weber State from Ogden, Utah. That's the place where Ralph Sampson played his last college game when the famous NC State team with Derek Wittenberg and Lorenzo Charles beat them. For just a bit of trivia there, JMU should be in command. I really love their defense this year. It's so much better than any defense they've ever had. The offense probably hasn't been quite as good as last year, but still plenty good enough, led by Brian Shore, who's an excellent decision maker at quarterback.
Absolutely, talking to Sonny Dearth, and really just exciting times going on in the state of Virginia all the way around. And you look at some of the schools in football and basketball. It's still very early in college basketball, but the fact that Virginia is playing in a bowl game against Navy, that has a chance to have a really good turnout. Here's my issue with that. They're playing it at the Naval Academy. They used to play it at RFK Stadium. I get it. RFK is old. It's decrepit, whatever. But Navy basically gets to play a home game. Now, look at this. The Vikings on the NFL front, if they continue to win, guess who the Super Bowl will be at? In their backyard. I guess that's the luck of the dice, Sonny Dearth.
Well, I'm certainly fine with that game being at Annapolis. It's very convenient for both sets of fan bases. My Hall of Fame colleague David Teal made an interesting comment. He said that the coin toss should be done by George Welsh.
Yes.
Why not? He's been so instrumental in the development of both programs. I would love that. As for Tech, it's going to be an interesting contest there in the Hall of Fame Bowl in Orlando. Or excuse me, the Camping World Bowl now. Camping World Bowl. And the reason for that is Tech has such a good defense, but the Hokies probably have never played an offense like this with a guy like Mason Rudolph at the controls. Gundy versus Foster. That's going to be pretty interesting.
You're not kidding, exactly. Of course, that guy was famous for his I'm 40, talk to me, that big audio.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
Exactly, but he's now 50 now. But anyway, it's all good. Talking to Sonny Dearth from the Daily Press and dailypress.com. And what else is going on as far as your thoughts, too, Sonny, about the NFL? Redskins looks like it's going to be tough to make the postseason this year.
I think for the Redskins it's impossible. They had it going there for a little while, but the injury bug has just been too tough for them to overcome. I'll be very shocked if they win more than one of their last 4 games. And gosh, I just saw they're going to play the Chargers in Carson this weekend. The stuff with the wildfires out there really scares me. I know some people out there. I just wonder if this game's going to go off as normal. But if it does, the LA Chargers are really hot right now. Who would have thought it with the poor start they had? But right now I would pick them over the Raiders and the Chiefs to win the AFC West. The Chiefs are slumping, and the Raiders have all sorts of question marks. And Keenan Allen, a guy I really didn't know that much about as a receiver until this year, has just been phenomenal for the Chargers.
Yeah, the Redskins play the Chargers, like Sonny said, of course, against Rivers, who played, people know him from around here, played for NC State. What a prolific passer he is, still not showing any signs of decline, and just the guy gets it done. So the Redskins take on the Chargers. Sonny, your thoughts before we let you go on the top 4. We just talked to Stan White, former Ohio State player who now is a Ravens radio analyst who played for the Lions and the Baltimore Colts. Ohio State did not make it. I think it's a pretty good top 4, though, with Alabama and Georgia and Clemson and Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think they got it right. I certainly can understand why Ohio State fans might be upset, but even Urban Meyer seemed to admit, that game with Iowa really cost us. And it looks like the pattern that has been maintained is if you lose 2 games, you're out.
Yeah.
And given that there's only 4 teams, that's quite understandable.
And what does college basketball always do? They look at the last 10 games. If Ohio State maybe lost to Iowa earlier in the season, who knows? Ifs, ands, and whats, we don't know. But they lost to them late in the season. That didn't help their cause as well. Sonny, thank you so much. Best of luck to your family there in Richmond, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Thank you much.
Thank you. Sonny Dearth right there from the Daily Press and thedailypress.com from our good friends at Little Tokyo Buffet, Hibachi, Noodle Soup Bar, Sushi Bar, and Buffet Bar. Give them a call at 325-8286 at 49 West Mercury Boulevard in Hampton, open for lunch and dinner daily. Well, it's the holiday season, and of course we don't know anybody that's a Scrooge, and we sure don't want anybody to be a Scrooge. Here's a classic clip from The Christmas Carol.
Mr. Scrooge, I presume.
Indeed you do, sir.
You don't know us.
Nor do I wish to.
My name is Poole, and this is Mr. Hackett.
Excellent. Now, if you'll allow me to pass.
Let me explain, sir. At this festive season of the year, it seems desirable that those of us with means should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute who suffer greatly at this time.
Provision. Are you seeking money from me then?
Many thousands are in want of common necessaries. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts.
Are there no prisons?
Plenty of prisons.
The workhouses, they're still in operation?
They are. I wish I could say they were not.
The treadmill, the poorhouses, still in full vigor?
All very busy, sir.
I was afraid from what you said that something had stopped them in full force.
A few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink, and food and warmth.
What can we put you down for, sir?
Nothing.
You wish to be anonymous?
I wish to be left alone. Since you asked me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. My taxes help to support the public institutions which I have mentioned, and they cost enough. Those who are badly off must go there.
Many can't go there, and many would rather die.
If they would rather die, perhaps they had better do so, and decrease the surplus population.
Surely you don't mean that, sir.
With all my heart. Now, if you will go about your business, gentlemen, and allow me to go about mine.
Wow, Joe Daniel, we know people like that. We sure hope they're not around this Christmas season. This is the time of the year you want to be good to all fellow men and women both.
Right, and if you're not, then maybe a ghost from your past will come and visit you.
We sure don't need that either, do we, folks? No, we don't. Of course, Craft Burger Bar, 1706 Mediterranean Avenue in Virginia Beach. Go by and see Jamie and the great staff. They got great appetizers like Kraft chili and fried house pickles, the Wagyu burgers like the Coronado, the Greek, the pepper, the shroom, the sunrise, freshly cooked, freshly prepared by his wonderful kitchen staff. Excellent toppings to add onto your burgers, as well as your Carolina snap dogs, chicken sandwiches, really go well with mushrooms and onions, salads, vegan burgers, house-cut fries, beer-battered onion rings. Like them on Facebook. Folks, you got to try it. Great parking lot there. Free parking at the Craft Burger Bar in Virginia Beach. A true destination as well. We'll take a short break. We'll be back after this.
You are listening to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Now, back to Greg.
And I want to thank our guest so far today, Stan White from the Baltimore Ravens Radio Network, former Buckeye for Ohio State, played for the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Colts. This will be archived on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube a little bit later on all of our Twitter handles as well. For more, go to gjbtv.com. Hit the YouTube link. Also want to say congratulations on his retirement from WFAN in New York, the big 50,000-watt powerhouse. Mike Francesa, who's been on the air there since the 80s, is on the air every day from 1 to 6:30. 30 years on WFAN. He's retiring from WFAN next week. One of the all-time great talk show hosts. When I did my internship at WCBS, had a chance to see him from the NBA draft back in the late 80s as well. All right, let's get to what teased me off.
What tees you off? Presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
Lately, Joe Daniel, especially this time of the year, of course, Star Wars is coming out next week, but it seems like Hollywood is just making movies just for the sake of making movies, but the reality is low box office, very little fan support. Just because you make a movie doesn't mean people are going to go to it.
Yeah, it's also a lot of the material that's out there is unoriginal. It's all remakes. It's all comic books. It's all been done before. It's all just done in the cinematic sense. So all these books are now being converted into movies, which I think is good for the people who may not have been exposed to the book for whatever reason, and now they're able to actually see and maybe pick up the book after the fact. But at the same time, again, nothing's original. They're just like, oh, I've seen that before. I don't need to see it again.
Right. I like the original movies that maybe become books, but not the books that become movies. But the Harry Potter series did very well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Not even very well. Like, extremely, like, mind-blowingly huge well.
All right, what else teased me off? When you see trees in the suburbs that block views on the road, that block the views. I mean, here you are trying to make a left turn, but you have to get to the medium. Then all these big oak trees are in the middle of the medium. You can't see the cars, especially when it gets dark so early, too. Not just to mention the trees in the suburbs, but all the Jersey walls on the interstate.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it be shrubbery or even like if you're trying to make a left turn, and there's another vehicle that wants to make a right turn, and he pulls up further up than you can't see the oncoming traffic from the right-hand side. And so, yeah, same thing, just that visualness. But I love the way it looks as well, like going down like a corridor or like a straight way on the road, and there's just trees that are kind of like enveloping you over the top. I do like that.
Yeah, like Hyden Boulevard and Newport News. I like it, but like we said, it's still an obstruction as well. All right, what else teased me off? All these quit smoking commercials. Here is my simple solution. Stop cold turkey.
Yeah. Easier said than done, that's for sure. But, I mean, vaping has been picked up a lot as an alternative for that, just because people who try the gums, who try the patches, from what I've heard, they like the feel of smoke in their lungs. I mean, that's just what my experience is with talking to smokers and why they continue to smoke and why they can't get off. But that's why vaping, I think, has extremely blown up, because they are still getting the feel, but it's way healthier without all the carcinogens.
Right. We've interviewed some of the vaping people on here. Very interesting dynamic as well. All right. How about these dual Facebook accounts where you see a husband and wife or a boyfriend and girlfriend having the same Facebook page? Let me ask you this. I've been married. I've been engaged. I would never do something like that. So do you have dual birthdays too? Are you Siamese twins? I mean, how immature for two adults to share the same Facebook page. Basically, what one is saying is, I'm insecure. I need somebody to give me a blanket.
Maybe. That is true. I think, though, it is kind of weird to see. I will admit that. To me, in my perspective,
weird.
It's kind of weird to see, but in instances, I think it's just because one of them aren't typically active on Facebook, and so they want to have somewhat of a presence on it. So instead, they'll just latch themselves and attach themselves to their husband or their wife.
Well, I know this one particular person just weak. All right, how about the end of a football game where coaches are trying to find each other for that awkward handshake? They need assistance or to flag them down or to wave them down. It really doesn't work because nobody wants to shake hands after the game. It's really bad sportsmanship. All right, people dropping off each other, especially during the holidays, in the middle of a street or a busy parking lot.
Did you have an experience with this?
Well, it happens all the time. You see, let's say you go to a big box store and then you're behind 4 or 5 cars. And all of a sudden, one car stops in front of you and drops off 2 or 3 people and holds up traffic.
Right.
You've seen it before.
Or they're waiting for somebody to come out of the store, and then they're just sitting there with their hazards on. So therefore, it's okay because their hazards are on. And so, yeah, I mean, that, and then you try to go around, but it turns out that somebody else was in front of the vehicle. But yeah, it's a cluster.
Are people driving handicap licensed cars that are not handicapped, but their family members are? Really bogus.
Wow.
Okay, we said, how about that Skittles commercial where it's all over the kid's face? That makes me never want to buy Skittles ever. Ever. Horrible commercial. And how about this? The auctioneer lingo. You hear the auctioneer talking in auctioneer lingo. Really? How about like, this is for sale, that's for sale, that item is $2, that item is $2.50.
It's fun.
Oh, really? Okay, well, how about Hooked on Phonics? That's fun too. All right, how about this one? When people can't say bye, they say, see you later, talk to you soon, have a good one. They just can't say bye.
Well, hopefully you don't say it like that. I'm one of those, I avoid the word bye. I don't know why. I've never thought about it. But yeah, instead of saying just bye, I say later. Or
they have trouble hanging up the phone.
Yeah, exactly. They just don't say bye, like in the movies. Nobody says bye in the movies. They all just hang up.
Exactly. All right, good friends at Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville. Mike and the great staff have a spacious, nice dining area, great bar, lunch and dinner daily. Burgers, steak, soup, salads, great place for the holidays, appetizers, seafood, pasta, yummy chicken, ribs, chops, excellent desserts, beverages, dine in or carry out right there in Kempsville at 1255 Fordham Drive. Go by and see Mike and the great staff. Give them a call at 523-4832 for more. Log on to Outback.com. Spend your holiday season at Outback in Kempsville. I want to thank our great guest, Sonny Dearth, as well as Stan White, and all of our great sponsors, too. We'll be back next Wednesday from 12 to 1, live on 1650, 92.5 FM. TuneIn.com, type in WHKT to listen to your phone or your computer. Interact with me 24/7. Ask me any questions at Greg Bick on Twitter. That's GREGBIC. For Joe Daniel, I'm Greg Bicouvaris. Happy Wednesday. We'll talk to you soon.
AM 1650, WHKT Portsmouth, 92.5 FM, W223CT Norfolk. For your daily supply of news and talk, we are The Answer.